What's going on, guys? My name is Matt, and there is a new pre-built maker on the block. Their name is Redux, and their big shtick is selling PCs for the cost of their parts plus a $75 build fee. They just launched last week, and today I'll be showing off a custom build from them, showing you what comes in the box, how it performs, and if these Redux PCs are actually worth it. Also, disclaimer, Redux sent me this PC for the purpose of making this video, but they're not paying me, and everything I say in this video is solely my opinion. The whole experience starts off on their website where you configure your PC. You start by picking your budget range with systems starting in the mid 800s and going up to around $2,000. Then you pick your 3 favorite games and the resolution you plan on playing on. This then displays what kind of FPS you can expect to get. Hitting next shows you the recommended configuration, and you can switch between Intel and AMD and even hit customize for further changes. Also, many of you will be happy to hear they have configurations with Ryzen 5000 series and NVIDIA 30 series GPUs. 3070s are currently available, but 3080s are out of stock until supply normalizes. Once you have everything how you like it, you hit pre-order, check out, and your system will arrive in 2 to 3 weeks. These Redux PCs come packaged really nicely. Opening it up, we find a few different messages and slogans, and then find this motherboard box. Pulling it out, you can see that they use this for accessories. Inside is a quick start guide, user manual, RGB controller, the socket cover, the power cable, extra power supply cables, extra case screws, and a recovery USB stick. With that out, we can now flip the whole thing upside down and pull the box away from the PC. As you can see, Redux uses some really nice closed cell foam, which is great because it's much more forgiving to multiple bumps and drops than traditional open cell foam that you'd find protecting many other cases in pre-built. The quick start guide reminds you to open up the side panel and remove the internal foam. This expanding foam helps protect the graphics card from moving around or even potentially breaking away from drops during the shipping process. After removing the foam, the first thing I noticed was how good the cable management was. Even small stuff like the cooler and fan cables were managed about as good as they possibly could be, providing a really clean looking system. Also, because I was curious, I pulled off the back panel too, and wow, the cable management job is incredible and actually a fair bit better than I do on my builds. Everything is routed very well, and overall the system was starting to impress me before even turning it on. I put the back panel back on, and before I put the glass panel on, I did the always satisfying plastic peel. With both panels reattached, all I had to do was plug in a display, some peripherals, and then plug in and power on the system. Starting it up for the first time and getting into Windows, I was happy to see that other than drivers, there really wasn't anything else installed. This is nice to see because many system integrators pack their system with lots of bloatware that ends up doing more harm than good. After I checked out what was pre-installed, all I had to do was install some launchers and games and was ready to start playing. But before I talk about the gaming experience, I first want to talk about the parts and pricing of the system. This is a custom configuration that has top of the line specs. Let's start things off with the CPU. The system comes with an i7-10700K. This is an 8-core 16-thread beast of a CPU, perfect for gaming, streaming, and even 4K video editing. It has a base clock of 3.8 GHz and a max boost of 5.1 GHz. With this being said, the all-core turbo for this chip is 4.7 GHz, which is pretty darn fast. This chip is based on Intel's Comet Lake architecture using the 14nm process. The 10700K is an amazing CPU and works great in this system, but another option around the same price that Redux offers is the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X, another 8-core CPU that edges out the 10700K in most cases. Both chips will work great, but I would recommend going with the 5800X over the 10700K in most instances. This i7 runs decently hot, meaning we need a good cooler to keep temps in check. What Redux went with is a 240mm Cooler Master AIO. Going liquid cooling for a system like this is a good idea, and this cooler worked more than okay. If you're interested in temps, I would stick around a few more minutes to see the temps while gaming, which I'll show and discuss during the benchmarks section. Moving on from the cooler, the motherboard Redux went with is the Asus Prime Z490-P. This is a relatively basic but high quality Z490 board which pairs well with our CPU and gives the option to overclock in the future if you choose. It has all the features most people need, like 4 DIMM slots, plenty of PCIe expansion, and decent back panel I/O. Overall, this motherboard worked out well, and I think it's a good choice on Redux's part. For RAM, Redux went with 16GB. This is one decision where I'm kind of split on. On one hand, 16GB is plenty for gaming, but because this is a pretty high-end system, and because RAM is so cheap right now, it would have been nice to see a 32GB kit included. With this being said, I will give credit to Redux for picking a dual channel kit, and one that runs at 3200 MHz, which is acceptably fast. This is an XPG kit, and overall it worked fine for this build. Moving on to storage, Redux went with an SSD and hard drive combo. What's included is a 500GB XPG NVMe drive and a 2TB SATA mechanical drive. This combination works great, offering blazing fast NVMe storage for your OS, applications, and a few games, along with the large hard drive for mass storage. I think this was a very good choice and is a configuration I've gone with a number of times in my builds. Next, let's talk about the graphics card. The system is using the beast of a GPU that is the RTX 3080. Again, they are out of 3080s for now, but they do have systems with 3070s, which is still an amazing card, and if you're watching this in a month or so after it's posted, I would recommend heading to their site because they may be in stock now. This is the PNY Gaming Revel version of the 3080, which includes 10GB of video memory just like every other 3080. This card is honestly far from my favorite add-in board design, but the cooler works well at keeping the temps on the hot running 3080 in check. This card is not very wide, but it's almost 3 slots thick. It's a triple fan design with a large heat pipe and fin array, and there's RGB around the fans. It has a nice metal backplate in a weird gray/brownish color. Overall, well, I don't really like the looks of this card. Its performance is amazing and it works just as well or better than most 3080s on the market. Again, I'll have benchmarks for this card later in the video. Moving on to the power supply, Redux went with a 850 watt 80+ gold unit that is unbranded, but they told me they sourced these units from reputable manufacturers like Cooler Master, EVGA, and Corsair. 850 watts is more than enough for this system, and this should be a very reliable unit, and the high efficiency rating is a nice thing to have. This is a fully modular unit, and Redux includes the extra cables in case you want to upgrade stuff like storage in the future. Let's now move on to the case. What Redux went with is this rebranded Cooler Master airflow case. This has a big tempered glass side panel, a full mesh front panel, a power supply basement, and lots of room for cable management. I think this was a great choice because it looks great, offers a ton of airflow, and offers good dust filtration. In terms of fans, the system includes 4 RGB 120mm RGB fans that move a lot of air and are reasonably quiet. You can change the colors of them using the included controller, and there are plenty of options to pick from. Overall, the part selection on the system is very solid in my opinion, so now let's talk about pricing. This system comes in at right around $1,900 from Redux, so is this pricing fair? Let's dive a little bit deeper. When we plug these parts into PC Part Picker and use Amazon and Newegg as the merchants, we find this build comes to $1,840, which when you add the $75 build fee brings us just above $1,900, which is the cost of the system. So that's pretty good in my opinion. The one thing some people are probably going to take issue with is the pricing of Windows 10. They value Windows 10 using the retail version, which is over $100. Now, as many of you know, you can get a cheap Windows OEM key for under $20, but the reality is the legality on those keys are a bit in a gray area, and buying a license directly from Microsoft or an authorized seller will cost you the listed price. So as you can see, there really isn't much upcharge compared to a lot of other pre-built companies. Could you build this system for cheaper? Sure, you could put it together for around $100 cheaper, assuming you can get a 30 series card for MSRP, but for a lot of people, the extra $100 is well worth it for the saved time and the peace of mind that comes with their 2-year warranty. So now that you have an understanding of the parts in the system and how it's priced out, let's go ahead and talk about performance. As you could expect, the performance is absolutely amazing. This is a system that you can throw any game at 4K max settings and get 60+ FPS. In COD Warzone at 4K max, the system was staying in the mid 80s most of the time. In Fortnite at 4K max settings, the system offered an average well above 144 Hz, staying in the upper 100s most of the time. For Apex Legends at 4K max, the system put out an average in the low 100s. Also, in a game like Warzone or Apex, dropping to 1440p will easily allow for a 144Hz average. Moving on to Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 4K max settings, the system averaged 75 FPS, and in Borderlands 3 at 4K max, the system put out a 63 FPS average. Finally, in Rainbow Six at 4K max settings, the system put out a 217 FPS average. As you can see, this is a 4K gaming beast beast even at max settings. In terms of temps, while gaming, the CPU stayed in the mid 40s up to the mid 50s depending on the game. These temps are really good in my opinion and shows that the liquid cooler is doing its job well. In terms of the graphics card, while gaming, the 3080 stayed between 75 and 78 degrees, which is acceptable. In terms of noise, I found the system to be very quiet. It was audible under load, but with headphones or speakers playing, you couldn't hear it at all. Overall, for a pre-built, this system is reasonably priced, uses good quality parts, and performs amazingly. Again, you could build this for cheaper, but for those who just want to buy a system and get gaming, I think Redux offers quality systems at an acceptable price. If there are any questions you have about this system that I didn't answer in this video, let me know what they are in the comments, and I will do my best to answer as many as I can. So yeah guys, I think this wraps this video up. Thanks again to Redux for supplying this PC for this video. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.